And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Morgana Ray is the author of Financial Alchemy, 12 Months of Magic and Manifestation. She's been a 7-figure spiritual life and business coach for nearly 30 years, is known as a leading expert on money manifestation. We'll talk about that. Blending mysticism and modern neuroscience to create her own coaching methodology. She has guided tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, artists, healers, and humanitarians to heal the rift between heart, spirit, and money. Morgana back on Coast to Coast last with me about 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, welcome back.
Oh, thank you for having me back.
How did you get involved in so much money?
It was not intentional. And to refer back to your beautiful guest before me, Dr. Dean, talking about magic. I needed to bring magic to the part of my life that was the most mundane, that felt the most heavy, the most unmagical, to bring some life into some love to this part of life that desperately needs it. So the quick answer is I failed at everything everybody else was teaching. And I had my Ivy League degree, and I had half a dozen coaching certifications, and I had celebrity clients and testimonials and marketing, and I was doing everything right. And I was living in Los Angeles 20 years ago, struggling to make $100 a month.
That's it?
I hope you're impressed. Because to take everything I had going for me and to be struggling to make $100 a month in Los Angeles is quite a feat, and I hope nobody else tries to replicate that. And it was just, I was doing everything I was supposed to do. In fact, I was not only not making money, but I was taking classes that were telling me to do the same things that I was already doing. And I had a really dark night of the soul, where I had tried everything, and my last gasp of hope, 7 clients in a row said they would hire me, and none of them showed up, and none of them paid. And I just had nothing left to do, and I could not see how I was going to survive. And it just felt cruel that I got good results. I had a talent, but I couldn't make a living at it. And that's the thing about money is life and death, which is why we have so much energy around it and so much fear around it. And I despaired. And I was really, really lucky that I was working with a coach, which honestly makes no sense that I was working with a coach when I couldn't even pay rent. But it saved my life at that time. Because after failing at everything, I had the vision boards and the mantras and the millionaire mindset, and I had all my friends in L.A. waving their hands, changing my money DNA. We're a real spiritual group out here. And nothing was shifting. And my coach looked at me and he said, Morgana, if your money was a person, who would your money be? And that was my big aha moment, because in that moment I saw my money instantly, and he was this big, scary, dirty, violent biker dude. Nothing wrong with bikers. But this one was bad, and he wanted to harm me, and suddenly my entire financial life made perfect sense. I was protecting myself from exactly what I wanted and needed, and it didn't matter what I was doing consciously. It's like Dr. Radin was talking about the delicacy of a little bubble.
Yeah.
And no matter what I did, that little doubt, that piece of unworthiness, that there was something wrong with me to take people's money, that I might be harming them, that I wasn't worthy, that money causes fights like it did in my family, and that it got in the way of love, would burst that bubble. And I would have so much shame and fear and anxiety around money that I'd be pushing people away who actually wanted to hire me. But I didn't know any of that until I saw this person, and I saw how dangerous and mean and harmful he was. And I didn't see it until I made him a person. We can talk about money forever, and it's an abstract concept, and it's interesting, and we can theorize. But when you make it a flesh and blood person, it becomes very, very real. And we see things. that are in our subconscious becomes visible to us, and then we can do something with it because we're speaking in the language of the subconscious. So I had to get rid of the biker. Again, he was poking and bursting that bubble. So no matter what I was doing consciously, I had this counter intention that I had to keep him far away from me. So I was pushing money away, and I didn't know it because it was dangerous, and I didn't know that I felt that way about money until I made it a person. So I had to get rid of the money monster, which created a new problem because I live in LA, and now I've rejected my relationship with money. So I had to think to myself, who could I want in my life so much that I'd be willing to have this person in my life, even if it's money? And out of my mind's eye just arose this sweet, handsome, romantic, gentle, safe, loving guy, because that's my flavor. And he wanted to be with me, and he wanted to woo me, and he was safe, and that's really, really important.
Did he just enter your life?
He entered my imagination.
Oh, you created him.
Yeah, I imagined him. He was my new relationship with money. He wasn't physical, but he felt real. And he was so cute and loving and sweet that I was like, okay, I want this imaginary person, and I'm willing to have a relationship with money because he happens to come in this package that is safe and loving, and he wants to be with me. Honestly, when I talk about relationship with money, it's really never, ever about money. Money is the symptom. It's really relationship with life. But money is that area of life that is the big limiter.
Well, here's an example.
Yes.
We're talking about Elon Musk today.
Yeah.
And he's changing the name of Twitter to X.
Yeah.
He spent $44 billion in money, some of it borrowed, of course.
Yeah.
Some of it his, but he still owes it. He's on the hook for it, to buy Twitter. Who would do that? Who would have an affair with money like that to do something like that?
Well, it's interesting because I've coached billionaires, and surprised they're human.
Are they happy people?
Very often not, because their drama just shows up differently. Remember when I talked about money getting in the way of love? That is a common experience on both extremes. And who could imagine that the world's richest person is so insecure?
I remember my first job in television.
Yeah.
$2 an hour back in 1969. $2 an hour. And I'm trying to figure out, and I'm still going to school at that time, but I couldn't live on that today.
Mm.
But I was happy. I still am.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was still happy doing what I was doing.
Yeah. Money becomes a problem when it stops us from doing what we think we need to do or be or have. And the reason I focus on money, besides having my own very weird journey after failing at everybody else's stuff, I did this, and overnight, 4 people hired me for double what I had ever charged before, and that started me on this journey. But the real reason I focus on money instead of just life itself is because money is the number one excuse we humans give for everything we can't have, do, or be. But we can also see that you can have all the money in the world and you're still a human being. And there are other monsters besides money that usually show up when money is no longer the problem.
It could be diseases, could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's our relationship with life. Is this world a safe place for us? Are we wanted?
Now, would you rather have money than not?
Of course.
Everybody would, I would think.
But we're at war with it. That's the ironic thing. If, for example, like I loved the Tony Bennett song that you played as we entered, and I was just feeling like, wow, how would it feel for you, George, if your relationship with money felt like that song? How yummy would that be?
Maybe it does.
I would believe it. I would believe that. But what if I said to you, for example, you get in the way of everything I want and you cause wars and you cause fights and you're unfair and you're evil and I wish you didn't exist, but I want more of you in my life. How would you feel about that relationship if that's what I was saying to you all the time?
Well, it wouldn't be a really great relationship.
Yeah. And that's the bubble bursting, is we want it, but we resent it. We need it, but we don't like it.
I admire people who make money and help other people.
Yes. Well, because there's no friction that way, or there's less friction. And that's the place that the block comes from, is when we're going in two directions at the same time. It makes me think of the tarot card, the Chariot, where the driver has a black horse and a white horse, and the trick is getting both vehicles going in the same direction, or both horses going in the same direction. If you've got one going, I don't want to have this relationship, and you have the other saying, I want to pursue you, you're never going to go anywhere, and you're going to be stuck. And that's where human beings get, is we want and we don't want at the same time, because fundamentally we're driven by safety and self-protection. That's the prime directive, and that's a good thing. But then if money is dangerous to us, because it brings up a lot of scary things about our ability to survive, and deeper issues. Money represents, am I lovable? Am I worthy? Am I safe? Am I powerful? That is what money measures in our civilization. So any of your wounds about not being lovable, not being worthy, not being safe, not being powerful are going to show up in your face in money drama to get your attention, ideally so that you can heal it. But while we're still in the pain and we're unconscious of it because we don't really know what our relationship with money is, we're going to keep pushing it away, and the drama just gets louder and louder and louder to get our attention.
Who would you say comes to you for assistance and help? What kind of person?
I get the most interesting people who are brilliant and want to save the world and are getting stuck. I have a cattle rancher
they're
in
good
Washington.
people. They're good people generally.
They're very good people. I don't think sociopaths have a lot of trouble making money. They have trouble with relationship. But the world savers and the sensitive people, they have a lot more conflict with money. And they're doing all the right stuff, and they're not getting paid what they deserve to be paid, or there's drama coming up that is making money the bad guy in their life.
How many people, though, are in a job that they're stuck because it pays them well, but they hate it?
Well, that's another version of a monster. It isn't just not having money. It's if your relationship with money is keeping you in a prison, getting in the way of the legacy and the lifestyle and the love you want to experience, then that's a toxic relationship with money. And it's even worse because you need it. So that would be a monster that I would want to get rid of, so that then you can have a really loving partnership with money who wants what you want, and then you can look at the situation together as a team and see what you couldn't see through your fear-based eyes.
And how did you come upon this yourself? Because you trained yourself.
Well, I had my initial experience 20 years ago with my own coach, and I had instant results. And then I started getting all these clients, and I wasn't marketing this money thing at all, but I kept noticing clients had money anxiety, money challenges, so I tried it out on them. And to be totally truthful, I failed in the beginning.
Why?
Because I didn't know what needed to happen to make the change happen, how deep you want to go into the root cause behind the money problem, because it's never really about money. You want to go as deep as you can into anything that has ever made you feel unsafe, unworthy, unloved, or powerless. The vulnerability of human existence. Again, it's relationship with life, but we can measure it in money. That's what's so useful about money. When my client Leslie makes $1.2 million a day after I coach her on a house that she'd been trying to sell for years and nobody had even looked at for years.
What did she do to change that?
She had been working, she saw me speak up in Sun Valley, and she purchased my Money Goddess Home Study program. And she had some immediate breakthroughs with that, slaying her monster, having a new money honey. And then I coached her because I noticed something in her life experience and history that would take it a little deeper to get at a deeper monster than she could go to herself. And when she saw what it was and rejected it, chose herself and rejected the monster, she got a call from somebody who wanted to look at the house, and it closed 2 days later. And that's happened more times than I can count. I get emails daily of people who have these unlikely occurrences. I love the Arthur C. Clarke quote, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." I can't predict or really explain it, but I've developed patterns and theories because I've coached so many thousands of people over so long. And the first one is I believe that change happens at the speed of safety. And if change isn't happening, something isn't safe. So you're not wrong, and you're not a failure, and you're certainly not a self-saboteur. You are protecting yourself from a threat. And it's a real threat. It just isn't what you think it is. Because our subconscious, which is where we have all of our attitudes and beliefs and where all of our actions come from, is a repository of symbols. So money is a symbol of these deeper life issues.
What does manifestation mean to you?
Manifestation, to me, is when you take action and you get a result. But it's not a straight line. You take an action in this direction, and then the result comes over there. And when you've been applying action for a period of time and you haven't gotten results and you feel like you're a loser, and you make a small inner shift, and then suddenly it all pours in all at once. I now have a theory that I developed earlier this year that all that work that you did wasn't wasted. It was just building up and building up and building up, but it was against this wall of safety that you built up to protect yourself from what you think you want. And as soon as it becomes safe, it's all that pent-up energy gets to pour in. And that's when the results come in, and they're just so much bigger than you anticipated, and they happen really fast when it's safe.
What if money really isn't the cause of this, but it's the individual?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
What if money isn't the cause for all this anguish, but it's the individual who does it? He creates it himself.
I absolutely believe that to be the case. I think that life hands us 3 spiritual teachers to get our attention for our evolution. And they are money, love, and health. And money just gets our attention louder and faster than anything else. So I think we have these unresolved wounds because we're having a human experience, and we want to find out what it's like to be vulnerable so that we can heal from it and help others.
We're gonna take a short break. We'll come back and chat more. We'll take calls with you next hour here on Coast to Coast AM. Hey, and welcome back to Coast. George Norrie back with Morgana Ray. Morgana, your book, Financial Alchemy, is also like a workbook because it has a number of areas where you can write in notes and things, right?
Yes, I created the book that I wanted, where it would be more than I would read something and be inspired and put it down and not have my life change. So I created a manifestation system for myself to carry people, once they've changed their relationship with money, how do you keep that relationship going? Because any relationship is dynamic. I can't tell my husband I love you once and then we're good for the rest of our lives. So I wanted to make it really, really easy for people to have big results. And in fact, one of my favorite clients had her first $250,000 sales month using my book before she ever hired me. It's the way I can do the most good, given that I'm only one person with limited time. I wanted to be able to transmit the change and guide people through how to make it happen for themselves in a really safe and gentle way, and then keep the results growing and growing and growing.
Well, how does this ability to manifest create additional money if it's not there or if you can't find it?
Well, that's the interesting thing is, here's why I love being a coach. I have met so many people facing the abyss, facing these circumstances that I can't imagine how they're ever going to get out of. And this is where the magic happens, when they slay their monster and they have this new loving relationship with money. Strange things happen. My client Athena got a call from her mortgage company where they offered to lower her mortgage and pay off all her credit card debt. And then she kept slaying new monsters that she would find, and within a couple of months she was making tens of thousands of dollars and taking what she called money honeymoons down to Miami with her imaginary money honey, having these just spiritual vacations together to decide what they wanted to do in the world. She's a healer, she's an intuitive, and she's also a musical artist. So that's one example, but they're just over and over and over again. People come to me and I can't see what is going to happen, but I see things turn around. And then it started happening with health, because I would slip in any area of life that somebody was challenged by, and very often it might be infertility, or it might be eczema, or it might be an injury, and I would put that into the monster too, that's keeping them down and ruining their lives and making everything dangerous. And then they would slay their monster and come out on the other side with this new loving relationship with life that we might call money. And my client Nova conceived the next day after years of trying to have a baby. And in the last year, a client came to me. She was losing her eyesight and her balance from a mold disease. And I can't make any promises, and I certainly would never, ever tell anybody to stop seeing a doctor. But when somebody's seeing a doctor and they're still struggling and she wanted me to help her with this, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's give it a try. And what happened is within weeks, her eyesight improved so much that her glasses no longer worked. And her mold symptoms have gone away, and her balance is back. And then she wanted to manifest love.
Would you say that you're psychic?
Yes.
First and foremost?
I don't know if I would make it first and foremost. I think it's just part of me. I think I've always tended that way, and then I had a catastrophic car accident in 1983 that really...
What happened?
I was riding a bicycle to high school, and I was hit by a car, and I was in a coma.
Oh, my God. How long?
I was for about a week, and I thought I was myself when I woke up, but I couldn't remember things. I couldn't study. I couldn't concentrate for years. I couldn't sleep. And while that was happening, I started knowing things before they would happen. It was a horrible time. I was suicidal almost daily for years.
Oh, jeez, Morgana.
But I would know things. And my brain came back. I'm happy now, but the knowing things and the precognition and the claircognizance and clairsentience and I don't know what it's called when you can smell something, but all of that remained, and I use it all the time.
When you say take care of your monster, could you replace that word with demon? It would be the same thing? It
would mean the same thing. I use money monster because it's alliterative. But I've used demon very recently with a client who had a life monster that wants to kill her. And when you can put everything that doesn't belong in the life experience that you want, and you can put it into this outside entity, and it's really important because we have such a tendency to blame ourselves, and we have self-defeating thoughts. And if we can take those out of ourselves and put it in this imaginary external being, we can reject and annihilate the being without harming ourselves. And it's a way of choosing yourself. And it's a very powerful spiritual practice, which is uncomfortable for women because we're not supposed to be wrathful and violent. But then we do have Durga and Kali and models like that. It's a very powerful experience to reject the ignorance and the pain and all the things that do not belong in your life, that don't fit with your values, and then start a new relationship with money, with health, with love, with life that shares your values and wants what you want and wants to be a partner and loves you and holds you and is safe. It calms the limbic reptile brain. It wakes up the frontal lobe, and it opens up possibility, and then strange things outside of you happen too. And you respond in a different place because it's safe, and you're expansive, and you're wise, and you're your best self.
So it sounds like what you're telling people to do is change their psyche in order to change their life.
I would say yes, and I want it to be a full-body experience.
And the money's just a barometer for testing this.
Yeah, it's great for marketing. It's numbers, It's fun.
You can see it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun when I hear those stories. But the real change is your life experience and your relationship with yourself. And the money follows the love.
So it could be anything, not just money, to change for somebody.
10 years after I originally slayed my monster, I slayed my money monster or demon or whatever you want to call it. I was 45, still single. I've been looking for my guy since I was 4.5.
Your real guy now, not your imaginary one, right?
Well, I chased Brian Patterson under the piano on his 5th birthday, and he was the older man. So I had been looking for a really long time when I was 45. And I dug up the root cause of why I might be protecting myself from love. And it was huge, like every hurt, every injury, every betrayal in my life that still hurt. And I put it all into this monster, and it was as big as the planet. And I put all my intention into rejecting and obliterating that obstacle and that monster, and I met my husband 2 months later. And we are currently 26 weddings deep into getting married 100 times in 100 countries. His idea, remember what I said about all that effort just kind of builds up and builds up and builds up?
Yep.
Doesn't go to waste. It just shows up when you're ready.
Now, what was your monster to prevent yourself from having him up until when you got rid of him?
There was so much betrayal and rejection and abandonment in my family, and that's where it started. And I just...
So it was with you primarily.
It's always. Everything is just a projection of our own experience. The monster doesn't exist outside of me, but I imagine it outside of me or outside of you so that you can destroy the monster and protect yourself at the same time.
So when we take calls next hour,
yes,
I'd like people to call us not just who have money issues, but all kinds of issues.
I love all kinds of issues.
You're like a psychologist.
Yeah. There is that. When you coach people every day for 30 years, you start to know people. And you start to see patterns, and you start to know things that you don't know why you know.
Have you met people that you know right from the get-go what their problems are?
Very quickly. I had a retreat in Bali back in 2014, and one of my women couldn't speak English. She was from Kazakhstan. But she was so determined to come to my retreat, I couldn't reject her. I couldn't say no. And I coached her through the whole process without either of us knowing each other's language. But I could follow the energy, and I knew what the issue was, and it worked. Because people are people, and you can feel them.
How easy is it, or how difficult is it to face your monster, whatever that may be?
It depends. I've had a 15-minute conversation with an artist who made $100,000 overnight, and then I had a client last year. It took us 8 hours to slay her monster, but she made $1.2 million over the next 2 months. So it depends on how much you need to protect yourself from it. I don't ever like to use a judgy word like resistance, because I think resistance is self-protection. And it's not your fault. It's just my job to outlast whatever monster you have, because people need to go at the pace they need to go at to get where they need to be.
What happens to the people who cannot get rid of their monster?
I've never encountered that.
Really?
Not on my watch.
That's because you're the better teacher.
I just will outlast any monster, however long it takes. And I know a lot of tricks because I've done this so many thousands of times.
How long does it take you to find out what the monster is within the person?
Sometimes I know it within the first 30 seconds.
And other times?
Other times we have to dig, because it's not just enough for me to know, but I want them to feel it enough that it's worth getting rid of.
How much of it is childhood related?
For most people, that's the lion's share.
That's what I thought.
So, there are a few people who had great childhoods and they got clobbered later in life, but most people, it's childhood trauma.
And if they were brought up as good family members from loving parents?
Well, then it's almost like a bait and switch, because they had a certain idea of what life was like, and then life wasn't like that, and it hurt, and they weren't prepared for that. It's the human experience. Somewhere along the way, we lose something that's important to us, or we're disappointed, or we're discouraged, or our heart is broken. It's just part of life.
Did you ever have a client break down and cry in front of you?
Oh, all the time.
How do you comfort them?
Extra points.
How do you comfort them?
Well, honestly, I don't, because I don't want to minimize it. The magic is in polarity. I want them to have the most extreme experience of the monster that they can safely. If we go too far, they'll dissociate, and we can't change that. But if we can go and fully express everything that they don't want, and it gets voice and it gets embodiment, then we can switch and flip it and reject it, and then it creates a lot of energetic momentum for creating the polar opposite. When everything that is the monster is gone, all that exists is love.
So by getting rid of the monsters, whatever they may be, one of the benefits, it seems to me then, is a financial better relationship.
Yeah. First, they feel more secure with life and their situation and themselves, no matter how dramatic it is.
Is there much effort involved, or does it just flow to you?
What flow to me?
The money.
It just seems to happen from unexpected places. I always tell people that I can't predict what is going to happen or when, but I'll find out after the fact that my client, Janet, her money honey told her to take a walk. She kept putting it off for 2 weeks. Nothing changed. She finally took the walk and picked up 2 clients who paid her $1,500 each. Or my client, Katie,
bingo,
she committed to going skating. She promised her money honey she would go skating. She didn't do it the first day, didn't do the second day, did it the third day, came home, got a phone call, $10,000, boom, that she didn't even ask for.
Just popped up.
Yes.
It's amazing.
There is an action piece. After you change the relationship with money and you have this lovable person, I think it's just a core principle of magic is that you need to embody it. You need to physicalize it somehow to bring it down into the physical realm. So you take an action, and it doesn't even have to be about money. But you want to run it by your money honey. The great thing about making money a person is now you can have a conversation, and it isn't all on you.
Good point.
You can see how this person responds.
We're going to take a short break and come back and take calls with you, Morgana, right here on Coast to Coast AM. Her website is linked up at Coast to Coast AM as well.